You like cricket, boys? Huh? We don't know where your money is and we don't know where Frank is. You're not back here in 4 days with my money. I'm gonna grind this up your crease.
We are talking about the action supernatural comedy movie Polterheist. Now, before I go into this review, this one's actually going to get general release in 2019, but the suppliers, Tribal Films, have actually given me a link where you can get a DVD copy of it right now. So I will leave that link in the description below. So if you want to get this movie before it's actually released properly, you can get it direct from Tribal Films, so I'll leave that link in the description. So Poltergeist, let's talk about it. This one is directed and co-written by David Gilbank, and it follows two inept criminals, Tariq and Boxy. And they work for this kind of like this Asian crime gang led by this guy called Udi. Now he is a kind of a sadistic criminal mastermind basically, who likes to torture people with cricket bats, and he has tasked Tariq and Boxy to try and retrieve some money from various kind of sources, and they find out that there's another character called Frank, who is kind of a friend of theirs, who has actually gone and taken this money, and Boxy has unwittingly killed this Frank without kind of learning the location of this money. So what Tariq and Boxy have to do is they try and kidnap this local medium who has got some kind of fame due to helping the police with solve a kind of a cold case, and they basically kidnap her to try and contact the spirit of Frank to try and find out where the missing money is. Now Frank has his own agenda and takes over the body of this spirit medium, and ultimately the three of them get into shenanigans. Tariq and Boxy is the criminals, and then there's this woman who has been possessed by the spirit of Frank to kind of have his own kind of agenda, but ultimately they're all trying to get hold of this kind of money. You add to this, you have a bit of a gang war brewing between the Asian gang, of which Tariq and Boxy are part of, versus the kind of the Polish criminal element in this northern English city to get control of the drug trade. So there you go. This is not really a horror film. This is more of an action comedy. Crime drama, I suppose, but with a supernatural element. There's nothing horrific in this movie. There are a couple of quick scenes where we have the spirit medium dealing with some spirits, but they are literally probably 30 seconds worth of footage. There is a supernatural element throughout this movie, so I will call this an action film with a supernatural element, but don't go expecting an actual horror film. That being said, there are some extreme violence in this movie, but it's more in the kind of the criminal type of, gang-related violence and stuff like that. Now, I'll stay with this film. This premise of the film, I think, is fantastic. I never knew I needed this kind of particular storyline before I'd seen this film. I actually thought the story here was a stroke of genius, and I'm surprised something like this hasn't happened before, actually. We have this kind of this spirit of a dead gangster kind of overtaking the body of a spirit medium to try and finish off this kind of one last job. And it's really fun because it has elements of kind of body swap as well, because we have the spirit of a male gangster overtaking the body of a female spirit medium, and that there's obviously kind of shenanigans involved within that as well. So it was a really kind of fun premise. I will say as well, the movie runs along at a fair old pace. There's always something happening. You'll never get bored in this film. It's absolutely action-packed, and there are some kind of like quite, albeit well shot, although sort of low-budget kind of action sequences, car chases, gunshots. There's actually a fairly high body count in this movie, and some scenes of extreme violence, I will say. But the comedy also works. Now, comedy is a little subjective, admittedly. It's a very British sense of humour, but nonetheless, I feel there are some kind of quite funny jokes here. It may border on somewhat offensive to some people, I suspect, but nonetheless, I sort of thought it was quite fun in regards to that. There are some good performances here. I thought the woman who played the spirit medium does a really great job, because initially she's kind of this somewhat kind of, you know, dowdy kind of quiet introvert woman when she's actually a spirit medium, but when she's overtaken by the spirit of this Frank, she's a typical kind of like blokey London lad, and I thought she did a great performance between those kind of those two kind of sort of personalities. So she was, I thought, was good, and there are some fun characters here as well. So what doesn't work for me? There is a point in this movie where it contradicts its own mythology, which kind of bothered me a little bit, specifically in regards to how the possession works and who's in control. That bothered me a little bit because it's a major plot point in the movie, and I'm surprised it was overlooked, but there you go. Our main actor here, Sid Akbar Ali, who plays Tariq, although I wouldn't say he's necessarily bad acting, he doesn't seem confident. He just, for me, he's meant to be the kind of the leader of this kind of little gang of people, and should be sort of quite confident. But his portrayal seems a little bit introverted and kind of just not as confident as I feel it should be. I would also say the way the characters are portrayed here is our protagonists, Tariq and Boxy. These are the people who we are following through the movie. Now, they're not heroes, they are criminals, but they are our protagonists. However, they are made to be pretty unlikable. So you find it hard to kind of root for them, because these guys are psychopaths and actually kill people with very little thought throughout the movie, and even turn on each other, and they're meant to be like, you know, really kind of close, and nearly kill each other a couple of times through the movie. And you think literally just the kind of a changing of the wind will set these kind of guys off. So they're a little bit kind of unlikable. I've got to say the crime boss Udi as well, who is this Asian kind of crime boss, is a little bit OTT, to be quite honest. But there you go. Now, this may be a little bit of a controversial one, but I've got to talk about some of the female cast here. Now, we have two kind of main female characters, and they're portrayed very well. The spirit medium, then we have this kind of like this kind of police commander, this female police commander. But both of those women are portrayed as very kind of serious, not at all glamorous. They're very kind of, doesn't wear makeup, very kind of functional looking, if that makes sense. Every other female in this cast who is basically glammed up is just treated as a thing, as a sex object. So although there are some strong female characters, it kind of, you get the impression that if you are attractive, then you're basically just a thing. If you're kind of, to be a strong female character, you've kind of got to be somewhat kind of dowdy looking, is the best way I can describe it. So, you know, this movie I enjoyed quite a bit. It's not going to be for everyone. I would say it's a very British sense of humour, and the horror elements are at a sort of a minimum. But if you like the kind of the Snatch, that kind of like British style kind of crime movie, but you kind of like a bit of a supernatural and comedic edge to it, then this movie will definitely scratch that itch, basically. So I thought it kind of hit the right spots and was an enjoyable film. I thought this was a well-paced film. I thought it was well shot. I thought all the kind of the fight scenes were well executed, and it has such a kind of a funny, unique twist to it, and a kind of a real fun premise that I'm surprised we just haven't seen more of. And without giving away any spoilers, I will say how this movie ends up, the kind of the status quo that we end on, is not what I was expecting. It went in a direction that I really kind of didn't see coming, which I thought was quite interesting. So I'll give this movie a 7 out of 10. I actually thought this movie was pretty good and worth a watch, particularly if you like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, that kind of thing, but you were interested in kind of maybe the horror element and kind of as well. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie quite a lot, so I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me comments and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.